So it's my pleasure to be here and be invited to be a part of the ALMA day today. I think it's a great opportunity for me to, share some ideas from Calgary Co-op and maybe give you some things to think about, what we think about from a retail perspective. One issue that came into focus recently at our AGM was the passing of the animal welfare resolution. So I'd like to update you on that today. And the theme of the conference, Future Safe, Safe, Sustainable, Successful. I applaud you on this really initiative because really it's about how we can all work together to make our industry successful. And as Gordon said, I've really been in Alberta really for 4 years. So truthfully, I'm kind of new to the Alberta livestock and retail organization, but what I do bring is 30 years of experience in the industry. And as Gordon said, I started off at Canada Packers, worked there for 8 years. In the slaughterhouse in Toronto, working mostly on processed meats and working on new product development, branding, things like that. Then I moved to Loblaw Companies, $30 billion organization, I think you all know. And in that organization, as Gordon said, I had very different jobs. So I did procurement, I did meat procurement, meat buying. I ran No Frills, that discount banner for a few years, the guy that put the bananas in the front of the stores, so understood that differentiation, ran conventional stores. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute because there is a relevance to this background. And then I was very fortunate after those years to move to Calgary Co-op. And I really feel blessed to be able to work in such an amazing organization that really has so many advantages, even in a world of Goliaths. Got to change some slides here. So I just give you a bit of background on Calgary Co-op to show you how we have a lot of businesses we try to differentiate in. So here's our first business. It's our food stores. We operate 24 food stores in basically the greater Calgary area. Calgary, Airdrie, High River, Okotoks, Strathmore. And this business did about $500 million in sales for us last year. We also have a pharmacy business. Now this business does about $100 million in sales, and it's a very changing business, obviously with all the legislation changes in Alberta, and obviously really affecting that business. So again, we're all, kind of vulnerable to changes in legislation, and for all the right reasons, but we have to respond. We have a petroleum business. Here's one of the smaller vehicles pulling in to fuel up at Calgary Co-op. And this is about a $350 million business for us. We have 28 gas stations, and we're the #1 pumper in Calgary, even with against all the big guys. So sometimes the little guys can succeed. We have a wines and spirits business. We have 28 wines and spirits stores. Again, change in legislation many years ago afforded us the opportunity to get into the wine, spirits, beer business, and this is a very successful business for us. The more locations we can get, we're building. And we're finding great success there through our different differentiation strategies. And you can see here, we have they're not low price, but they're differentiated in a way that allows us to grow that business. And ultimately, last year we did $1.2 billion in sales, and that really was because we have 3,500 fantastic employees. They're co-op employees, and one of our real competitive advantages is our people. And I think, I know in all your businesses, people really do make the difference. So I'm very proud to work with those people. And, we also have, as a co-op, as I explained last night, we have 440,000 members who are on our that own our co-op. And last year, we were very pleased to give back $34 million to those members in cash and share equity. So when you really think about that, over the years, as a co-op, we've given over $700 million back to members of Calgary who are members of our co-op. So that's one of our competitive advantages of being a co-op. Our profits are shared with our members, as you know. Also, we're very proud to give money back to our communities. So, last year we gave $4 million back in our local communities. Here's a check given back to the Mustard Seed, which we're very pleased to partner with. So, when I arrived in 2009 at Calgary Co-op, we had a small problem. Our food sales were declining, and in the retail business, when food sales decline, then obviously in a very tight margin business, very high cost, like many of your businesses, it puts a real squeeze on the bottom line. So it was a serious situation. So one of the issues that's in our market, I'm going to go through some of our challenges. We all have these challenges, but remember, we have 24 food stores in Calgary. This year alone, in 2013, we have 16 new competitors opening in our market. So that shows you the pressure that we're under to try to figure out how we can differentiate. And you'll notice there's no Safeway logo on there. I don't know why that is. I think they missed it at the office. So our challenge here, obviously, is we call it the battle of the basket. How do we continue to grow our food sales in this type of environment? Well, the first thing we had to do was, my job as a CEO, coming in new into the province, try to figure out two things. Why do people choose the grocery store they shop in? Why do Calgarians choose their store, and how are we doing? How are we measuring up to that? So it's very important to understand what consumers, how they make their decisions. So in 2010, we conducted some research, and basically what we did was we surveyed people who primarily shop at Safeway, shop at Sobeys, shop at Superstore, and shop at Co-op. And we asked them, why do you choose to shop where you choose? The number one reason, obviously, is location. For the retailers in the room, most of you realize people are time stressed. There's a lot of parallels to everything we do here. They're time stressed. They say, look, I just got to, it's a grocery shopping. It's not really like we're in the grocery business. We love it. They say, well, I just got to get it done, right? So they shop at the closest store. So that's a vast majority of people. They just shop at the closest store. So the second most important reason is, why do they drive by their closest store? The second most important reason is price. And I'm going to talk a lot about price in a minute. So again, people that are price obsessive, they're going to say, I'm going to go and get the best price I can. So for Calgary Co-op, or any retailer, if you want people to drive by their closest store, not shop for price, what are you going to do to differentiate yourself? How are you going to be different? How are you going to add value to that customer to say, I'm going to drive by my local Tim Hortons, I'm going to go to Starbucks and pay $2 more for a coffee? What causes them to do that? So this slide here shows you, a trend, and this is going to, really affect how your industry, our industry, thinks about this. So if you see on the left side there, you see in 2005, the discount segment accounted about 38% of the grocery sales. In 2013, that's already grown to 46%. That's going to grow to well over 50% of the market. So what does that mean for me? For me, that means my market is shrinking because I can't compete on price. If you want to compete on price, like in your industry, you have to have the lowest cost of production if you want to sell at the lowest price, because if you're not differentiated, whoever can produce cheaper than you is going to get the business. Calgary Co-op, we have great service, we have an infrastructure, we're never going to have the lowest cost, so we need to figure out ways of differentiating. Now, for the livestock producers, people like that, what does this mean? It means that half your market is looking for the lowest price. The conventionals, or the ones that are trying to differentiate, are looking for something different. They want low price, but they can't compete on price, so they need something different. So that's what I want to really talk about today. And this is part of the challenge to all of us in the industry is, the most efficient way is to do everything the same way. However, the retailers are telling you two different stories. We don't want everything the same way. We want something different. This is probably where you're getting this confusion from. So we did some research to find out, price. So we had to figure out in our own minds, how much more are people willing to pay? And there's some research around that says, if you are 8% more expensive, people will not shop with you. So in other words, if people perceive that our prices are 10% or 8% more, they're going to say, you know what, we're just too expensive, I'm not going to shop there. But if you have great value and you're a little bit more expensive, they're going to say, I don't mind shopping at Calgary Co-op because they've got these things I'm willing to pay for. Think back to Starbucks coffee. So we did some research on this. We wanted to find out where we stood. I don't know if you can read this chart, but in April 2010, so we asked Sobeys shoppers, if you spent $100 at Sobeys, how much do you think it would cost you at Calgary Co-op? They said $112. We asked Safeway shoppers, if you had $100 to spend and you shopped at Safeway, how much do you think it would cost? They said $113. Superstore, they said, Superstore shoppers said it would cost $130 to shop at Co-op. So what does this mean for us? 108 says that we're not going to get any of these shoppers. This is maybe the reason why our sales are declining. So we had to address this issue. So we put a whole bunch of strategies in place to try to turn this around. I'll show you a couple. But we've been working hard on this. You can see now that in just January, Sobeys is now down to 108, and we actually have research that shows that's lower now. Safeway's now down to 106, and Superstore's at 127. Now, the most important point in the slide is, what's the reality? We actually are about slightly more expensive than Sobeys overall, we're at 102. We're actually cheaper than Safeway. We do all the baskets and everything, we're about 97, or 3% below, and we're actually about 10%, 13% more than Superstore. But like all of us in this room, perception is reality. It doesn't matter what the reality is, it matters what the perception is. This is going to be a reoccurring theme. So what do we do to try to turn the price around? This is, we're not a price player, remember, but if you've got a real negative perception that's a barrier, you have to turn around. So we did a whole bunch of things. We merchandise our stores different. We brought out these price programs, these price drop programs, everyday prices on everyday essentials. And again, were we trying to be the low price leader? No, we can't be. We're not gonna be. This is not to say that our prices are low as No Frills or Superstore. This is to say to consumers, you know what? We have great prices too, but ultimately we want to say, we don't mind paying a little bit better because we trust you on all these prices. So again, this is why in all of our industries, what are the negatives we have to take away before we can sell our positives? So these are the three items that we found that are differentiators for people. So they're willing to drive by their closest store, right? What are they going to drive by the closest store for? What are they willing to pay a little bit more for? The number one reason was produce. So if you have by far the best produce, then people will drive by to buy the produce. Okay, so we put a whole bunch of initiatives in place, and now we know that our produce now, in the last 3 years, we've moved the score up to a lead position, which means that when we ask those Safeway shoppers, Superstore shoppers, Sobeys shoppers, Co-op shoppers, more than 40% of the people in the market say we have the best produce, right? So that's a great thing to say. Loyalty benefits, believe it or not, this is one of the things that was a little different when I came out west. This doesn't show up in other research I've seen in the US or Eastern Canada, but loyalty benefits, the Air Miles card that Safeway has, our patronage program at Co-op are huge drivers. So people will, again, drive by their closest store, pay a little bit more if you grab great produce and you have a loyalty program, people will shop there. And the fifth most important reason, but our second most important product attribute is meat, which is, I guess, why I'm here today. So, guess I should follow my notes here a bit. So the point is, Calgary Co-op has had a great reputation for meat for many years. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is the consumer preference for beef in Western Canada. The co-ops have always worked with the industry to have great beef. We have a very differentiated program. We sell AA, AAA, we sell aged, we sell organic. We have a whole range of beef products that allows us to lead in this area. We also have a dry aged program. It's not in all of our stores, but this is where you've probably seen this in our stores where we dry age the beef, and this can be 21 days plus AAA, and it's fantastic eating meat. And this was a program that we lost, by the way, with the XL situation, and it was unbelievable the amount of complaints we had over this product versus other products that we had. So it's not for everybody, but it's a differentiator. And again, the real difference for us is the fact that we have service meat cases and trained butchers. And what is a trained butcher? We always hear about this, but it really is someone for consumers to talk to. People don't know how to cook anymore. They've grown up in McDonald's and all of a sudden they have a family and they don't know how to prepare a lot of the products. So if a butcher can give them a very easy explanation, then it's very easy for them to make some of these choices. We have this other program that we've got, which I think is really, if you live in Edmonton, you've probably seen this program. It's called Localize. So what this really does is it recognizes local producers. So one of our big competitive advantages as a co-op is local. People want to buy, this is a trend you see everywhere. People want to buy products that are local. So, you're going to see, Walmart come in and say, we're local. the boats are coming in from China. But the thing for us is, as a co-op, we can really win on local. So this is one of our huge competitive advantages. We have now over 1,000 products in our store in the last 6 months that are identified with this localized logo. It's a third-party verification. It's CFIA approved, and they're the ones that come up with the rating scale on this. And we're finding great consumer acceptance of this because this is a trend through our research that people want to buy local. One of my challenges to the meat business, and one of the things I can't believe is, we can't say we sell Alberta beef. So, that's one of the things that we want to try to figure out is we want to sell Alberta beef because, we're Calgary. Now again, does Walmart want to do that? Superstore want to do that? Probably don't. So here's another mixed message for you. They probably don't, but we do. So this is one of the things we're going to work hard to try to find. Another thing we want to really work on is antibiotic growth hormone-free beef. Again, we had this program last year with the XL situation. We kind of lost this supplier through a whole bunch of reasons, and now we're looking back on it. And I really believe, again, I'm a retailer here to maybe challenge the industry. I could be wrong. But I truly believe that, this is a trend that's going to come. People are very concerned about their health, and I think as an industry, we need to really think hard about whether we're going to continue with the growth hormones in our cattle. We're seeing growth in these categories. There's a lot of consumer demand for it. I'm going to talk about a comparison in a moment about that. But lots of European countries, they're really on this, and I believe that this is a trend that we're going to keep pushing for in our environment. Another challenge for us is the size of the cattle. You guys have seen this chart a million times, and we know that it's more profitable for the producer to have these larger cattle. But what does this do to the retailer and the consumer? So there's a couple things that happen here. One is, so people look at the size of a steak, right? So the price point gets so high as the steak is getting bigger and bigger. The price point gets bigger and bigger. So the retailer has a couple choices. One is, what do? They cut it thinner and thinner and thinner. What happens when the customer takes it home and cooks it? Tougher and tougher and tougher. So that's one of the challenges. The other challenge is, so we end up having to slice and dice this large cattle in a different way. So now we do things like we sell a boneless bottom blade petite tender. And for the so as my assistant was helping me put this together, she said, "What a terrible name, a bottom blade." So is that a consumer-friendly term? So look at what what happens here is we slice and dice. We try to market this, and it always adds a lot. So maybe the cost that we saved at the producer side, now we're actually adding all that cost back into the retail side to slice and dice this to a way that, so total supply chain costs, is the customer getting a better price for this piece of meat or not? That's the question. I don't know the answer, but what we do with these products here is, this is one of the ways we're trying to differentiate. So we have the butchers, the skilled butchers in the store. We have catalogs that come out called summer grilling, for example. So we try to offer some of these unique cuts to the consumer that are value added, they're easier to cook, often they come with recipes. So again, a way to try to sell more than the commodity. So beef accounts for about 30% of our sales, whereas pork only accounts for 9% of our sales. And we've done a lot of things with pork, a few things to do with pork. So I have a few challenging comments here to make as well that hopefully we can all think about. And so we do things like we try to sell extra meaty back ribs. We have stuffing programs. We try to add value. Again, pork, what do you usually see in the case for pork? You see some pork chops and some tenderloins. That's about it. There's not a huge selection of pork. People don't know how to really cook shoulders. They don't know how to, a lot of it goes into further processing, sausage, hams, things like that, bacon. But the very limited cuts in fresh pork. So how do we address that? And the problem with pork is it tends to always be a loss leader. So when do you see pork in the ad? It's always at a really cheap price on the front page. And pork's usually in the ad because we've already advertised all the beef, we've advertised all the chicken. Everybody says, geez, we need something different this week. Let's throw pork in. And that's not, I don't think, where we want pork to be. We want it to be a leader. We want it to be a great product. And I think one of my pet peeves is, there's a lot of advertising in pork over the years. The other white meat, put pork on your fork. And you know, I would rather say, why isn't it the other red meat? And, you know, I think one of the things, one of my challenges, even when I worked back in Canada Packers, I was very surprised to see, you know, all the kind of best pork was going to Japan. And, you know, I was thinking, what's the pork that we're selling in Canada? It's kind of what's left over. You know, some of it might be PSE, although that's gone down a lot. It's, you know, it's a much whiter pork, but it's not the best pork. So I think, so you could get some great pork, but you might not get great pork. So the thing is, how do we get a super consistent product that is like the Japanese specs? So I think one of the things we're working at Calgary Co-op is we want to get a pork that's the best pork. It's got the right marbling, it's got the right color, it's got the right tenderness of the fat. And, you know, speaking to one of the fellows last night about the breeding piece, you know, I think, you know, that's where we really need to look as an industry. How do we make sure pork tastes fantastic every time people buy it? World standard pork. That's what we're looking for. So again, if we had that, we could sell it. And let me give you some examples on this, so maybe other proof points. So I think the eggs are going to talk later on today. But the last little while, you know, I've had the opportunity to go to all these different egg laying facilities. I've been to, you know, these gestation-free, you know, pork housing situations. And I think one of the things the egg guys have done a great job is they have differentiated their product. Many years ago, we used to sell one kind of egg, right? It was just a commodity egg, sell it cheap, pile it high. Look at how many different kinds we sell now. We have 7 to 9 different kinds of eggs. We've got omega eggs, we've got free run, we got free range, we got comfort coop, you know, in the more, what do you call it, enhanced housing cages. What's the learning here? Well, maybe we need in the industry, we're not going to be able to sell all one kind of egg, and people are willing to pay more for these eggs of perceived value. So that's the key thing here. If we sell commodities, we get the lowest price. If we can try to find perceived value, people will pay for it. And just speaking to the, you know, the egg producers the other day, or the we get from Sparks Eggs, he's blown away by the kind of non-traditional commodity eggs that we're selling in our stores. So there's a real demand for this, and it's growing. And if you look at our cases at Calgary Co-op, we now have the space allocated equally, 50% to the commodity, 50% to the value added, to try to move those sales. So our member resolution. So I'll read this off. Moved that Calgary Co-op phase out the sale of eggs and pork sourced from intensive confinement cages, sow, gestation stalls, and battery cages within the next 5 years, since this type of intensive confinement has been widely viewed as inhumane, and that in the interim, Calgary Co-op work with suppliers to find alternatives not sourced from these types of intensive confinement cages. So there's two cool schools of thought in this thing. Oh, wow, how did this get through? You know, it was defeated in some other co-ops, so that's a good thing. I'm thinking, you know what, maybe this is a good thing. You know, maybe we're hearing, so if this many people voted for this, maybe there's something here. Maybe we have to listen here. Maybe this is the edge of something. So I think this is a real opportunity. And interestingly enough, the amount of emails and phone calls we got from this hitting the papers was unbelievable. Safeway shoppers, Sobeys shoppers, Superstore shoppers saying, wow, that's great that you've switched over. You know, not really understanding the whole thing. So they're now shopping with us. So is it going to be everybody? Of course it's not going to be everybody, but there's some demand for this and understanding. So what we tried to do is, being retailers, you know, we're not really playing in this field. We tried to learn more about it. So one of the fellows we spoke to was Dr. Pager, Professor of Animal Welfare and Behavior at the Department of Production Animal Health at the University of Calgary. And we sat with him for about 2.5 hours one day, and, you know, really trying to understand what animal welfare is. And I know you in the room are far more expert than me on this, but for a simple retailer, here's what we're kind of getting out of this from Dr. Pager. You know, encompasses physical health, hygiene and comfort, as well as the mental or psychological health of the animal. So the first thing, I got an email from a friend, and he said, you know, how do you know these chickens aren't really happy in these cages, you know? Because, you know, when they put them free range, then they have all these social issues, you know, they're not in the hen club, you know, they don't get invited to all the best parties, the rooster's always bothering them, and, you know, what do they do in their spare time as an activity? People are always looking at them, you know, there's a lot of stress in the free range, right? So, and he said it to me as a joke, and I thought, you know what, there is something there, you know, like how do we know if they're happy? Like everyone's presuming these things, right? So that was one of the questions we asked Dr. Pager. And I think, you know, there's a lot of research going on in this field. They're trying to, you know, figure out, you know, what is the animal's choice? What is the pig's choice? What is the chicken's choice? What do they feel comfortable in? Where is that comfort, you know, between what's the, you know, the difference between the feelings, the functioning or the productivity for the producer and their natural behavior? Where is that line? Where's that little spot in the middle that's going to be right for everyone, and how do we prove that? And one of the things that Dr. Pager said to us, which I thought was very interesting too, is, you know, we have a real perception reality gap. All of you that are in this industry, you're saying, these people from the city, these retailers, they have no idea what they're talking about. You know, that's your problem, right? Because that's perception. And like Dr. Pager says, you know, everyone has this view, this old McDonald's view of what a farm should be. You know, they have no idea the challenges that, you know, the producer community has to raise these at a reasonable cost. So, you know, I think it's one of the things that as we're all working to try to figure out these, you know, what is the right thing to do, our challenge on this is how do we communicate, you know, this reality versus perception. Remember our price perception we had to address? How do we as an industry, you know, like all the pictures we see on the internet are, you know, 65 chickens, you know, jammed to a little cage, and that's what the standard in the industry. So, you know, there's so much misinformation out there, and that's what people, that becomes their reality, because that's what we give them as perception. So I don't think this issue is going away. You guys, you know, you in the industry know this better than I do, but this is the EU sousing ban compliance in the UK, and you can see that, you know, many of the European countries have actually moved pretty strongly in this direction. So, you know, I think this issue is not going to go away. So, you know, as an industry, we need to try to figure out, you know, our way through this. Here's me, third from the left, going to a gestation-free crate farm. And, you know, again, for all you producers in the room, I know it's just one visit. You know, they dressed us up so we wouldn't get dirty and transfer bacteria and all these things. But, you know, when you get out there and look at this, I mean, it is a very, very complex situation, and it's not going to be, there's no easy solution to this, of course. But, you know, we're just trying to learn about it and, you know, just, you know, try to educate ourselves so that as we're working with you, maybe we have, you know, a little bit more background than old McDonald's farm. So, you know, I think one of the key things here is, you know, we really want to try to figure out how to add value to this pork category. So, like I said earlier, you know, is it going to be, are we going to sell the commodity pork? Are we going to sell a, you know, an antibiotic, hormone-free, you know, a gestation crate-free pork? You know, what are some of the, you know, maybe it's going to be, you know, AA, AAA pork. You know, how do we start to give a consistency across our product so when consumers buy it, they're never disappointed? So these are some of the things that we're working on. You know, I'd love to have a Japanese spec pork that we could sell in our stores. Not sure I like the term, you know, but, you know, whatever that grade or that standard is, maybe that's an industry standard that we can have a Canadian brand that we can really sell and talk about and be proud of. So one of the things that we do, and I spoke to this is about elk and bison. So, you know, another way we're trying to differentiate is even further into other meats. And so we try to, we run things in Swerve magazine, we put recipes in there, we talk about our elk and our bison, trying to get people introduced to new kinds of meat. And things like goat. You know, goat is one of the largest consumed proteins in the world, yet it's very hard to find in this market. You know, South Asians are big consumers of goat. We know the ethnicity growth in Canada. Is this an industry you should be looking at along with, you know, elk and bison? And again, back to New Zealand lamb. You know, is there something that we could supply to the world, like our bison, our elk, our maybe goats? You know, is that a protein that we should look at really owning in Canada and being the leader on? You know, another area we're getting into, so, you know, a lot of our competition, you know, is not other retailers. It's fast food restaurants. It's, you know, it's just restaurants. So what we're doing, one of our stores, is we actually have now, it's called Fresh to Go, where we're actually cooking products. So we're cooking beef ribs. We're actually cooking all the offcuts because, you know, we can cook a pork shoulder, which we can't sell in our retail, we can make a pulled pork out of it. So it's interesting. So we can buy these kind of low-cost meats. We can prepare them with these professional chefs. So it allows us now to, sell some of the offcuts, which maybe we couldn't do before. So interesting way to, and people love these cuts because they haven't tried them. Hopefully that starts to translate into sales into our fresh meat store. Again, train butchers. This is where, are we doing enough to educate butchers in the industry or people in the meat business, how to talk to a customer, simple facts. I think that's another real opportunity for us. This slide here shows, another trend. So this is interesting. So, organic produce. And I'm just showing you this. I'm trying to draw parallels between different industries to show you how maybe things work. So, our market share in Calgary is about a 20, and we used to sell less than half of that of our share in organic produce. So we wanted to, remember we said before, produce is important. What does it mean to have the best produce? Well, we said, consumer trend is people want to be healthier. We wanted to have the best organic produce. So we put a program in place. We put our back-end systems to ensure quality. We can direct buy out of California or wherever. We phone them on a Monday. We find out what's kind of left over. Because remember, we're a little guy. All of a sudden, there's a trailer of raspberries left over, organic raspberries. They're perfectly right. We say, ship them up to Calgary. We get them up here. We put them in our Herald ad on Thursday or Friday. We can sell a whole trailer of organic strawberries at $1.99 or $2.99. Great value. So you can see here how we advertise this in the bottom of our ad this week. And that's now, so we have increased our organic sales 300%. So now we double our market share almost in organic produce. So what we've done there is we've listened to our consumers, we looked at a trend, and we took advantage of it. Now again, is this a superstore strategy? Is this a Walmart strategy? This is a strategy that works for Calgary Co-op. Local, organic, healthier. And interestingly enough, which is one of the chains in the U.S. is, other than the growth of the discounters, which chain is growing, one of the fastest growing chains in the U.S.? Whole Foods. Whole Foods, right? So why is Whole Foods growing? Because they're understanding this trend. Are they going to take over Walmart? Of course not. They're not going to beat the discounters, but they found a niche. They've found a difference. So it's kind of like the same. So what are the parallels in the meat business where we can really find some of these, again, whether it's antibiotic-free, growth hormone-free, what's cleaner, what's healthier, how do we start to, teach consumers about that? Because I really believe, people are worried about cancer, they're worried about their kids, you can see all the childhood diseases. It's a growing worry amongst people. Maybe it's perceived, but, perception is reality, so how do we react to it? Again, some mention about the XL situation last year, and I know we're all very disappointed by this, and it was very disappointing for us as well because, at the end of the day, it's our reputation. I mean, it's all of our reputation, but, especially when you're a retailer, to have empty cases and have to put these signs up, really, it makes you feel very vulnerable. It's kind of like going to work without your pants on and you're standing in your boxer shorts. But this just shows you, and I don't have to harp on this, but, critically, given, the consolidation of slaughter in Canada, especially beef and many of the other areas, we become very vulnerable to these food safety outbreaks. Ethnic. So I don't know if you've seen the market reports on ethnic, but, this is new Canadians, excuse me, coming to Canada. And, Alberta, believe it or not, is going to be one of the most ethnic provinces of visible minorities and new Canadians than anywhere in Canada. And for the simple reason is, we've got all the new jobs, the growth is in Alberta, we need workers to come in. So, we're seeing vast growth. Like we have some of our stores that have 40% South Asians or 40% Chinese and all these different groups growing in. So, we either have to respond to that, from our listing base, our pricing strategies, and also from our meat strategies and our produce strategies. Are we carrying the right cuts? Are we carrying the meats they want? Are we into fish how we need to be? So we have to respond to this trend. And again, back to goats. I mean, I don't know if anybody, and there's goat suppliers here this morning, but it's another protein that's going to be on the go. And we had our board for a dinner last year, and we went to an Indian restaurant to try to again, learn more about Indian food and the cooking, and they cook traditional. So I said to the chef, I said, you know, we want to have fresh goat. He says, geez, that's going to be hard for me to do. I can get some goat 2 weeks from now. But so even a guy who's highly specialized in the restaurant business had a hard time finding that. So so I think that's another challenge for us as a protein industry. So you can see we've got world foods here. Not sure Mexican is really world foods, but I mean the truth is, who's buying all these world foods, as we call them? You know, my favorite lunch every day is butter chicken, and you know, these are products, you know, these products are crossing over everybody. Everyone's traveling. Everyone likes some of these great flavors. So, you know, just you don't have to be, you know, Indian to enjoy Indian food. You know, I think there's a huge crossover now of everybody buying these foods because they taste great. So I'd like to end on our brand story, and you know, I wanted to do this because I think this shows you in our DNA, you know, why I'm here this morning and why I really want to, why we do honestly want to work with the industry. And Lori Shield helped us with this, put this together, just to give proper credit here. But I'd like to read through this, and this is how we view ourselves as a co-op. So I'll read it. Against the grain we went, driven to build something for people, against the attitudes of the day, against the naysayers, and against the norm. In a time of neighbors' need, we stood up, and we stood together. We built a store to earn people over profit, to provide for kitchen tables over boardroom tables. So here's to believing in the essentials, on the table, in the home, in our neighborhoods, and in life. Here's to those bold enough to offer full service in a self-service world, to provide high quality in a humble way, to keep prices down while still investing in people, and to supporting the local farmers and the ranchers who grow the food we eat. Here's to sharing our good fortunes with each other and with our neighbors. To those who want not a company but a collective, to provide quality in a humble way, to keep prices down while still investing in people, and to supporting the local farmers and ranchers who grow the food we eat. Here's to sharing our good fortunes with each other and our neighbors. To those who want a company, not a company, but a collective, creating owners where elsewhere they are simply shoppers. Here's to a store built around the community and not just in it. Here's to a lost cause, wrote one of our first members about co-op in its infancy. 56 years, 3,500 employees, and over 440,000 members later, here's to never losing sight of our cause. Here's to our co-op, and thank you this morning.